Our group is comprised of 2 seniors, Nicole and Allie, and 3 juniors, Yvonne, Bailey, and Sam. Nicole was the first person to think of the idea to do our project on implicit bias because it is something that she and Allie learned a lot about in Melanin Minds, the African American culture club that they are both a part of. When Nicole introduced the idea to the group, everyone agreed that it would be an awesome project. Bailey has always been into social activism, and it piqued the interest of Sam and Yvonne. The name of our group is MHS for Equity. We chose this name because the purpose of our group and our project was to get MHS a little closer to removing implicit biases and becoming a school that revolves around equality.
Our problem is that the new American dilemma isn't so simple. We have all of these markers by which we can demonstrate that we're not the people we used to be. But we don't know the ways in which we're not such good people because that part is unconscious. You may think this about yourself, but is that really who you are?
Our challenge was to help others become aware of certain tendencies and judgments that they unconsciously make daily. This type of bias is almost automatic, and it was important to introduce discussion questions that can further our and others' understanding of the issue. We also wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable and aware that every opinion was respected and welcome. Our goal was to get everyone involved and to have a meaningful and organized conversation to become more aware of ourselves and our own tendencies, but also possible ways to improve the issue.
We are currently high school students living in an extremely hostile society. With the rise of certain political figures and the influence of social media, racism and blatant prejudice seems to be rampant everywhere we look. Even within our own school, there have been incidents between students involving race and implicit biases that have irked us tremendously. We are all at a point in our lives where changing our implicit biases is still relatively easy because our brains are still developing and are therefore malleable to change. We feel as though if we train our brains to be aware of and avoid implicit biases, our society will benefit as a whole.
We implemented our solution of creating awareness of implicit biases and attempting to both educate on and eradicate their ensuing issues through a structured discussion. We invited all members of the community to attend a discussion in the Learning Commons after school on June 13th, where they could enjoy refreshments and, in a comfortable, mediated setting, discuss the concept of implicit bias. We utilized a slideshow presentation to add structure to the mediated discussion, as well as to pose questions to the group to guide conversation topics.
These questions included, but were not limited to, do you believe that unconscious associations may be affecting how you perceive or interact with others? Do you believe that people can be colorblind and not see race? Do you think that having a black president has moved us closer to racial equality in the U.S.? And how do you think that social media affects your own perceptions and associations?
We provided staggering statistics and data to the group, which really helped to educate them on the problem.
These statistics were made to reflect the ways in which implicit bias affects the fabrics of our society. 1 million out of the 2.3 million Americans incarcerated are African American, despite African Americans being only 15% of the population. 5 times as many white people use drugs as African Americans, yet African Americans are sent to state prison for drug offenses at 13 times the rate of white people. 45% is the percentage at which African Americans are more likely than white people to switch from owning to renting a home. All of these statistics display disheartening and tragic effects on minority communities, specifically the African American community.
The first part of our solution was the implicit bias test based on race, which utilized data based on their answer choices to tell how implicitly biased they were based on racial preferences. This served as our solution by educating others on implicit bias as a social construct, and how one can overcome these biases through awareness and taking action in their own lives.
The following is a video which explains the breakdown of how the implicit bias test worked.
You see words that capture good and bad. You have to associate Yankees with good and Red Sox with bad. This is very easy for a Yankee fan. But when you tell them to associate Yankee with bad and Red Sox with good, That's an impossible thing for them to do. They can't do it. They'll make mistakes. They'll take a lot longer to do it, and so on. Take a test like this and now just replace Red Sox and Yankees with the groups black and white. Imagine that for half the trials on this test, you have to associate black with good whenever you see a black face or a word like love, peace, joy, friend, all these good things. And while you're doing that, you have to put white and bad together, and words that mean terrible things in the world, words like agony, devil, bomb, vomit. How hard is that for you to do, is the question. We're not talking about your conscious attitudes. We're not talking about your conscious beliefs. We're talking about something that you yourself may not necessarily know you have. For something like 75% of white Americans, it's very hard to put black and good together.
So I get associated with white people. I hung out with white people. I grew up with white people. However, I did grow up with mostly my African American family, so I guess that's like the part of it. But I really did expect to get the other way around. So
like I don't, as like I said, like I don't explicitly endorse that stance, but like, cause I got like moderate preference over like European Americans over African Americans, but for a lot of my life I've just surrounded myself with like white people, and I haven't really made an effort to get really into diversity until last year.
For European Americans, and like what you said, Rob, I grew up around European Americans predominantly. So I was surprised, but I kind of already had kind of knew where I was just by the way I acted in social environments, or like when I'm around African American strangers versus European American strangers. I noticed that I was a lot more hesitant around African American strangers, which I mean for me, I'm African American. It's kind of like, whoa.
African American, and I got like neutral, and I just took it. Obviously, took it again just now, and I got neutral again, and I was like happy that I got that because obviously you don't want to be like. But it also was like kind of scary how hard I had to concentrate and how hard I had to focus in order to get like that score, I guess. So that was a little.
I think that our project was successful mostly because we had such a great group of people that engaged in conversation, though not all may have known each other. There was never a quiet moment, and I think that was a goal because it meant that all of our questions got people talking and really involved. I think that the more people talked, the more aware I was, especially about the reoccurring problem of unconscious biases. I think that when even one of the group members learns something new, it is indeed a successful project.
I believe the implementation of our solution and our project as a whole was definitely a success. The turnout to our discussion was better than we could have hoped, and everyone there, regardless of their political or religious opinions, were very respectful and open. I was fascinated by what everyone had to say, and I think our goal of educating people about the dangers of implicit bias and how we as individuals can conquer our own biases was definitely achieved. I'm proud of the work we did and proud that we were able to make a difference within our community.
I believe our project was a success. Our goal was to gather people and have a well-rounded conversation about the implicit bias issues of our modern-day generation and society, and everyone openly shared their opinions. Also, everyone who participated in the discussion was respectful to others' thoughts. As the conversation went on longer and people became more comfortable with speaking up, they became more conscious about implicit bias. Overall, everyone seemed to have a good time and enjoyed discussing.
It was a fun discussion. Everybody here was very good at discussing, like it wasn't offensive at all, and everybody was very open to discussing the topics. It was just a good group, and you guys came prepared. It's always good getting other people's like experiences and things like that. It just gives you a well-rounded view of the problem. But I think for people who really don't put themselves out there for like discussions or experiments like this, or don't go to things like Melanin Minds, this could have been really informative and good, hearing things like this.
I was aware that these issues exist. I think it's like good practice to be able to like talk about them in a respectful way and like be comfortable talking about them and not be so like railed in your own beliefs and feel like because you're like a certain race or because you're privileged that like you can't set. Like that last question really stumped me with the whole like how can an individual change it, because I was like, wow, you know, I really don't know. It's tough because like everything is so like ingrained in you from the time you're young, and then plus the media doesn't really help. But yeah, I don't know, I'm looking forward to like kind of digging into it further and seeing if there's any other solutions, like once I learned more about it?
I think it was really productive because when we have conversations like we did today about implicit biases, it opens up a door for further talk about it to then, okay, so we know we're all on the same page, let's get some people who aren't, and then kind of open up that door to move forward, be more productive, because we can, so I mean, talking only gets you so far, and you need to take action. So I guess when we have groups like this, really concentrate on knowing that there's a problem, acknowledging that there's like something going on, okay, what do we do now? And I think this is the first step. So it's very productive. You guys did a really good job. Thank you so much.